Now we're going into Act 5. Yeah, I just walk back and forth. Again, I love how you can just keep on moving, rather than being forced to stop. And this is another Yellow Springs level. You know, these would have been a lot more charming if they were just a one-level gimmick. The thing is that they don't, like, if you go backwards, which you pretty much have to do sometimes if you want to collect the red rings, like, if you go backwards, they're not going to go backwards. So I was pretty much cheated out of that red ring there, because I was pressured to keep on moving to the right. And you gotta stomp on them to get higher. And the thing is, it keeps on moving, even when you're not on it. But yeah, this kind of wore out its welcome the first time. I'm not really sure why they decided to devalue it by bringing it back. And look, it just goes on without you! It would have been so much better if you had complete control over it when it moved. And a lot of people are happy about these just because they're yellow and look like springs. And I guess they function the same way as the Yellow Springs in the classic games, in that they don't launch you as high as the good red springs. But the reason that Yellow Springs were good was that they were almost just as common as red springs. In fact, they were more common. And they were used in the same way for the same reason. So they deepened your appreciation for the red springs, because you thought, wow, a red spring! I better hit that because it's going to launch me really far and really fast. But the Yellow Springs in this game aren't used the same way as the red springs. They're just a rare gimmick. And I love how that trail of rings sends you directly into... Like, really? The trail of rings are usually supposed to be parts of the game design that tell you where to go. It just feels like betrayal that the rings are guiding you towards where the energy balls are going to show up. Like, that's not how good game design works. It's an alright level, but it pads itself out. And I thought I would love this level, because it's all about using the drill underwater. But there's lots of problems. First, there's a ceiling, so no dice there. Second, there's not nearly enough drill widths, so if you run out of drill, then you have to go all the way back to the one place where it is and get it again. And you have to use the drill to go through the black blocks. So, and it's not very satisfying going through the black blocks because it takes so long to do it. And it's easy to not find it very intuitive that you even can drill through the blocks because of the fact that you don't smash through them instantly. So you might think, oh, I can't go through them right away, so they must just be an obstacle. See? Like, the drill ran out there. So that might have been what led me to think that I couldn't drill through that. I do like how this game doesn't take away your lives when you restart a level. So that's a good way to cheat. Like, if you're about to drown before the first checkpoint, just restart. You'll save your life. And you won't have a longer time as well. Sonic actually struggles for air if you stand still while he's drowning, which is actually pretty unnerving and does a good job of making the drowning intimidating, except for the fact that the music is completely unintimidating because there's not enough to it. And yeah. But yeah, like, I like the drill wisp. I like how you can drill through the pipes for extra shortcuts. But it kind of, as you can see, it controls really wonkily. You turn it left and right. It's not like you can control it anywhere you want at any time. Like, you can't do an instant 180-degree turn whenever you want. It's not like every time that you hold right, you go right, and every time you hold up, you go up. No, that would have been good controls. Instead, it kind of turns like a tank, and I didn't find it very intuitive where that spring was. Like, I didn't know that hitting that spring would send me out of it, so it took a while to get here. And that just leads you directly into a bottomless pit. Like, you go immediately from a fast, fun section straight to falling into a pit. The water here is ankle deep, so it's really pointless trying to platform here because it's not really about platforming sometimes. Like I don't know. Some people complain about the fact that there's no 3D water areas in Sonic games. But honestly, like, would that really be fun to play? Like, that's the important thing. Like, it would still be slow, and if they had the boost, then there wouldn't be much platforming. So either way, it would just add a drowning threat. And again, you boost directly into the pit because, like, you're on a flat area, a flat floor, and it just sneaks up on you because all you see is the light. Like, it would be more realistic to expect you to jump over an exploding black block or something. Oh boy! Isn't this great game design for a Sonic game? Let's just lock you in a room and have you homie attack a whole bunch of enemies. This reminds me of, like, Aquatic Base or Flame Core. Combat does not really belong in a Sonic game. Like, you're just... Like, if you were playing as the Werehog, then you would just have a whole bunch of different combat moves. Like, it's better than mashing the A button again and again. Like, the Werehog's combat was cheap because the animations of the Werehog were so slow that you always got attacked while you were during them. And it would happen a lot because you would be swarmed by enemies. So it was cheap. And, like, at least the combat in this game is easy. But still, it's not something that should be done. I like this though, but if the water levels of all things are the most open and exploratory levels in a long time, something's gone wrong. Like, I really thought I would like that level a lot because of the drill wisp being used underwater, but I had an annoying experience with it in the first playthrough because of the unintuitiveness of it all. And in a contrived coincidence, Eggman just happens to say this at exactly the right time. I love that performance. That's a good joke, actually. Sushi's actually a type of vinegar rice, so it doesn't necessarily have to have fish in it. So that joke makes sense.
Are you sure? It says somebody ordered an extra large clobbering topped with everything.
Sonic as a character is completely demolished here.
Okay, tell you what.
I like to imagine that the robot is expressing my sentiments and doesn't think he's funny at all. It's so awkward how he says clobbering. Like, that's something that an elementary school bully would say. That's not really something heroic. And it's so awkward and forced that he just says clobbering 3 times in a row. Like, Sonic is reduced to a pathetic stand-up comedian. Like, all he's doing is just pathetically making food puns over and over again at an airship mech that can't even hear him. Like, it really goes to show you how pathetically desperate he is to look cool, even against things that might not even be sentient. This boss theme is so badass. Favorite song in the game. But yeah, like, if I could summarize my thoughts on the jokes in Sonic Colors with one cutscene, it would be that cutscene right there. Like, I like the Eggman line, but the thing that Sonic said at the very end of it, especially with that pathetic attempt to be badass with "Hope you're hungry." I thought that I had to use the drill to break the ice, to break the glass there, but it turns out you have to lure the missiles towards it. It's like the final boss of Rush Adventure. And I wish the glass would progressively get more and more cracked as it got damaged. Like, that would have made it, like, easier to tell how close it was getting damaged. For some arbitrary reason, you can't homie attack underwater, which is stupid and doesn't make any sense. So you have to stomp into the enemy, or just jump into him from below to damage him. Like, it's less convenient. But I guess since you're always in ball form, because you're always double jumping, you're guaranteed to not get hit by all the enemies. But I think this boss is a little more annoying than the one it's a clone of. Like yeah, clone of. That's the thing. This is actually a Sonic game that reuses boss fights. And you know, I actually like that because it means there's a lot less pressure to get the boss fights right, because, like, you know for a fact that you're going to see those bosses again. So there's less time where you're worried, thinking, like, what's the next boss going to be? Is it going to be hard? This is actually the second game to reuse boss fights, like Sonic Heroes did it first. And this is like the Game Gear games by having the bosses be against robots rather than by Eggman and Nameca. So that's also pretty unique. And one last piece of trivia about this zone in particular is that Aquarium Park is actually based on an old concept for a Japan-themed zone that originates from pre-production sketches of Sonic 1. And like, how cool would have that been? I think Labyrinth Zone would have looked a lot cooler aesthetically if it was more like Aquarium Park with a Japan water park theme. What is Labyrinth Zone anyways? Is it like sort of coral cave? Rush Adventure did a better job portraying that. Is it like some ancient underwater ruins? I guess so.
Great job, Sonic.
You know me. I aim to please.
Well, I'm totally pleased.
I like how nice Tails is being to him. But now another unnecessary toilet humor joke. Thankfully, this is the only toilet humor left in the game. I like how he says cruelty there to, you know, acknowledge that Eggman is supposed to be evil, and they should hate him for being evil and not for being bold or anything. Like, the way Sonic talks about Eggman in the modern games, it's like he doesn't hate him for being evil, but for being bold and fat. And I'm thinking to myself, he just sounds like an elementary school bully. He doesn't sound like a hero when he... Like, I know what he's trying to do. He's trying to taunt him about stuff that he'd actually be offended by. Because when he calls Eggman evil, he's just gonna go, yeah, I sure am. Isn't that badass of me? But it doesn't come off as Sonic's being ironic and trying to look like he's not intimidated by Eggman at all. It generally comes off as Sonic is not intimidated by Eggman and doesn't take him seriously. And like, that's supposed to be a bravado, a front, to make it look more like Sonic's brave and doesn't feel intimidated. The Frenzy Wisp, it's a good Wisp, but it controls like ass in 3D. So I'm deliberately avoiding all of these tubes and trying to see how much I can avoid without using the Frenzy Wisp at all. And actually I did a pretty good job there until I got stopped by that last tube. Unfortunately, there's no checkpoint. Like, this level has a lot of checkpoint starvation with the roller coaster section coming up here. If you die to the roller coaster section, you get started all the way back at the start of the tube section again. Here's the problem with these things. They suddenly change the rail switching controls on you, so that suddenly you rail switch by pressing a direction and then A. So it takes a while for you to realize how you're supposed to jump to the next roller coaster, because if you just press A, then you'll just jump straight up and you could die. But if you just tap right or left, that nothing will happen. So it's easy to die a lot in those sections. And for some reason, the fan wasn't working for me. Like, I think I got stopped by that platform there, so I gave up. It's a good thing that they have this warning sign there, although it only appears when you have Navigator turned on. I think I preferred how Generations did it, where you didn't have to turn on the Navigator to have that warning sign appear. Obviously, jumping into the orange and red, the rainbow rings, is a really good idea in those sections. These fans are definitely a lot more reliable than the classic Sonic game ones. You can't actually jump while you're being blown upwards by them, like in the Emerald Coast fans at Generation 3DS. Well, it's a good thing that wasn't a bottomless pit, because I just ran right into that. There are people who don't really like the aesthetic of this level because it looks straight out of Shadow the Hedgehog. Like the game, with the green liquid and the dark black sky. Like, this is such a contrast to everything we've seen so far. Like, it's hard to believe that this and Sweet Mountain are from the same game. This is a pretty cool section, like it's satisfying, but also a little tense. Homie attacking those asteroids. And like that's a pretty cool set piece. Like Colors knows how to have set pieces. At least for this level anyways. So that's good. You can never tell when the gravity's going to switch on you, like what areas the gravity's going to switch on you. Thankfully, anti-gravity isn't really that huge of a gimmick in this level, but when it does, it screws you over. Homie attack as much as you possibly can. Like, it's annoying how you can fall up and die in this level. And like, you don't do that. But yeah, like the Frenzy Wisp is pretty satisfying to use to just destroy everything. I don't really see much of a point to it though. Like aside from going faster through the level. But yeah, like I kind of like the aesthetic of this place, but not nearly as much as the Sweet Mountain level. It looks good for a final level in the game. Because it's all dark and grim and stuff. And it makes sense that it looks the way it does. Because it has aliens in it, and Shadow the Hedgehog had aliens too. But because the Wisps have an actually Sonic-like design, people are perfectly fine with them being aliens in a Sonic game. I don't entirely like that double standard though. And both Colors and Shadow the Hedgehog having aliens in it just perfectly demonstrates my point that they're just counterparts of each other. Colors did the same thing as Shadow the Hedgehog by going to extremes with the tone. And they both have aliens in it. Just that they did it in different ways.